The self-development industry is a $42 billion industry. That's a shit ton of money invested in making people feel like crap about themselves. The imposter complex becomes a problem when it keeps you out of action, doubting your capacity, and alone and isolated. There is going to be a moment where you go, who do I think I am? I'm not ready yet. This has already been done by smarter, more capable people than me. What am I even doing here? Or yes, I've had some great success, but that statute of limitations on my ability to do more great things has finally run out.
Welcome to the Old Chicks No Shit podcast for midlife women who are ready to rewrite the rules and create their kick-ass next chapter. I'm Jennifer Arthurton, and each episode we dive into reinvention, resilience, and unapologetic pursuit of your best chapter yet. Because midlife is not the beginning of the end, it's simply a new beginning. Let's dive in. Today, we are going to be talking about the imposter complex. And I wanted to talk about this subject in particular because there is this notion out there that all my midlife women are uber confident, have no F's to give, and the reality is that when we are stepping into uncharted territory, when we're trying to create something new in our lives, we're going to feel all of the things. And imposter complex is one of the things that can really hold us back. So today, my guest is Tanya Geisler, who is a certified leadership coach. She is an international TEDx women speaker, a writer, who teaches leaders how to combat their imposter complex and lead with iconic impact. I love that. So that they can achieve their ultimate goals. Her clients are best-selling authors, heads of industries, MPs, public speakers, leaders, movement makers, basically people who are making an impact in the world. So I am so happy to have this conversation with you, Tanya. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here. And I'm like, oh, I have so many F's to give. I have so many F's to give.
I know, right?
All the F's.
Yeah. I wanted to do this episode because, we're not fearless when we're not fearless. We're human beings, right? And yes, we're more confident in other ways, in some ways, in a lot of ways, but not necessarily in everything. So I really wanted to unpack this topic. And for the record, Tanya and I did an episode way back, like almost 3 years ago now, on the imposter complex, which I'll link in the show notes because you should go listen to that episode. But today we're going to be unpacking what I call the midlife paradox, in that, yes, we are more confident than we've ever been, but it's a bit of a double-edged sword because it's also a time of life where we doubt ourselves more than we ever have. So, Tanya, tell me, how did you come to do this amazing work that you do on imposter complex?
It is such a great question. It's such a tough question. So the fastest road I can get us to is I was in advertising, and I was really good at it. I was great at it. But I was doing it. There was a way in which the work that I was doing was a little soul sucking. There it is. It was just kind of soul sucking. And my daughter was born 8 months before my mother passed. And so there was this life is short, these two huge events that sort of happened on top of each other. And then it just became really clear that I probably wasn't here to, help pharmaceutical companies build a better mousetrap, right? So it just wasn't that wasn't for me. And again, I was good at it. A friend of mine was going through a bit of a career crisis. And you know how it's unacceptable when we see people around us in any kind of a crisis, even though it might be happening to us as well. And we're like, oh, that's fine. I'll just push on through. But it was unacceptable to me that she was experiencing this. So I created this beautiful experience for her with, gathered people in her life that knew her in different aspects. And we reflected all we had seen in her when she'd been really powerful and what we wanted more of for her. Well, out of that super not strategic, experience, she ended up discovering life coaching back in like 2005, 2006, well before, we had any kind of frame of reference for it. And so then as things were happening in my own life, she said, this coaching thing, that's actually what you have always been doing. Even that experience that I ended up calling Board of Your Life, that's coaching. So I was like, oh, crap. I guess I better
Right.
figure out what this is all about. So I went into a certification training program, and then I was like, oh yes, this is it. This is it. And part of what really solidified it for me was having my own experience with Board of Your Life, where people were reflecting back to me when they'd seen me really powerful, when they'd seen me, really alive, in flow on purpose. And it was when I was in this sort of circle of care of somebody. Anyway, so that's how I found my way into coaching. And then very quickly I started working with largely women who were all very high functioning with really beautiful values of excellence and integrity and proficiency. And I kept seeing this ribbon of experience that was running through all of their lives, and ended up being the imposter complex. So it was like that became just a deep fascination. I couldn't understand how these women who'd been on, literally on Oprah's couch, or had been, their books were on the New York Times bestselling list, still having this experience of this not enoughness. So that's sort of how I found my way into coaching. And then with the imposter complex work, I was invited to do a TEDx talk back in 2012. And I tell you, there's nothing like being invited to do a 20-minute talk to help you get real clear, real fast on what ideas actually really matter to you. So that was the genesis of coaching, and then the imposter complex.
Do you think, because as I'm listening to you describing your work and the common thread that women had of, no matter how accomplished they were or at what level they were in their career, underneath it was this current of, I'm still not there, I'm still faking it. Do you think everybody has imposter complex to some degree? Is this like a universal human condition?
I believe it is. Not everybody agrees with me. And I think, this is one more of those how long is a piece of string kind of things. I believe that most folks who have really strong values of excellence, proficiency, and integrity are going to experience it at some point or another when it's something really meaningful or that really matters, because it's about, making sure that we are doing our very best. I also think it's important to name that it usually happens on the precipice of something new, right? On the precipice of something that is big and expansive. So anytime I get into a debate with somebody, they're like, I don't experience the imposter complex. Usually I'll say when was the last time you really swung out? Right? Because it's that's where it shows up. And it's really important because, I'm a white, neurotypical, able-bodied woman of middle-class means living in North America. That's not everybody else's experience. And it's important that we name that the farther you are away from the center of whatever the universe is structurally and systemically, you're going to have an exacerbated sense of the imposter complex. So, I talk about this all the time, my husband, Greg. This world that I currently live in, made for him, right? So white, neurotypical, able-bodied, cis dude living in North America. So for every concentric circle we're othered, we're gonna have an exacerbated sense of it. So I think it's important to recognize that we're not all experiencing it the same,
right?
And I think that sometimes when we flatten it, we miss out on that very important context and that very important nuance because. I just think it's really important. So, yes.
Yeah, I think that is really important context for sure. And so my other question is, do you think women experience imposter complex more than men?
That's what the data shows. The other thing, so many things I gotta say, like a whole book's worth. We also know that there's a bioevolutionary context to this, a little like fear. It's actually part of our genetic makeup to make sure that we don't evolve too quickly. A lot like fear, right? So, of course we're going to experience it. And for me, it sits at both ends of our fear of success and our fear of failure, because it's obsessed with us belonging. So if you're we fear failure. We understand that. We don't want to be too far behind the pack. We also don't want to be too far out front of the pack, right? So that's the fear of success as well. So I think that if we look at people who have those beautiful values of integrity and excellence and proficiency, who are swinging out and doing things that feel risky and that matter, there is going to be a moment where you go, who do I think I am? I'm not ready yet. This has already been done by smarter, more capable people than me. What am I even doing here? Or yes, I've had some great success, but that statute of limitations on my ability to do more great things has finally run out, right? So it's all of that. Or we'll look at the things that we've done and we'll say, yeah, I just got lucky, or they just liked me. Is this super up for us people pleasers? Anyway, so much.
Yeah, because one of the things that I see a lot is women discounting their own experience, right? Like, it's instead of, celebrating their accomplishments, what they're doing is, well, I just did what I had to do, or, that just happened that way. And it always saddens me because I feel like, that's one of the things that holds us back from creating what it is that we want in our lives, right? Well, because I'm not qualified. Meanwhile, they have this laundry list of things in their lives, things in their careers that they have accomplished and challenges that they've overcome. And, and it all gets discounted. Why do we do that to ourselves? And I think I see it more along women than men, to be honest.
Right. And that's conditioning. So to your question, there's a way in which, we follow a lot of the conditioned narratives. Good girls don't brag. Good girls don't take up too much space. Right. Good girls put others in front of themselves, put others ahead of themselves, right? So this creates this experience, and it's a super gendered thing for me to say because, of course, it depends on how you've been conditioned. But so the embedded people pleasing, the embedded leaky boundaries, the embedded perfectionism, and frankly, perfectionism is a huge aspect of white supremacy culture, right? So it's a gendered thing. It's also just this idea of what's best, who sits at the top of all of that. So much of that is, the America Ferrera monologue in Barbie, right? It's all about that. It's about that perfection ideal, a standard that folks who've been conditioned as women are going to experience, which of course sets us up for, am I doing it now? Am I doing it now? Oh man, I must be a fake, right? So it really sets that up. So from a condition perspective, 100%. I will say though that, men absolutely experience it. It's going to show up differently. So for me, when I talk about the imposter complex, it wants to keep us out of action. It wants to have us doubt our capacity, and it wants to keep us alone and isolated. And how it does that, and we have these different coping mechanisms that we'll go to avoid feeling like the imposter, because nobody wants to feel like that. Those are perfectionism, leaky boundaries, people pleasing, diminishment, comparison, and procrastination. Those are the 6 that we'll go to. And so when we hide out over there and the people pleasing, they're not gonna I'm just gonna win them all over with my charm and my likability. But then when we hide out in that people pleasing, then we start to think, oh man, I was only given this opportunity because they like me, not because I am deeply skilled and brilliant and talented at what I do. Right? So this can be this double bind that gets really complicated. And diminishment, sort of the same thing. Diminishment is like this, we actually might feel pretty good about a thing that we're doing, but because of the conditioning, we don't want to be seen as too far up front of the pack, so we're going to dial down, dim our light, and then we start to believe that less confident bio. We start to believe that, it really wasn't a big deal. Right? That starts to embed our sense of it. It's not really a big deal. So we feel, again, like the imposter. So it's this double bind that's very complicated and very complex.
Yeah. So, okay, can you just repeat for me the six things? Because I'm I think I just checked the box for all of them at some point along the way.
Well, that's actually a really good distinction. So, so it's people pleasing and leaky boundaries. Comparison, diminishment, procrastination, and perfectionism.
Check. Yes. I mean, I think like when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, you know what I mean? Like when you're taking a risk, a place that you've never been before, like all of that feels like normal and natural responses, like physiological brain responses, right? Like to protect, like, you know, when you're about to get eaten by a lion in the savannah, right? Like all of those things. Well, I'm not going to go into the savannah because, you know, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to, but like, so, I mean, are they normal, natural responses?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Like human, because we're human.
Yeah, 100%. So this is, yeah, they're 100, like, of course they are. And so, I'm so excited that I get to say this part, because this to me is what is so meaningful about these conversations. You know, I just named it all as these like, they're double binds and they're the worst. You know what? My people pleasing means that I'm deeply inclusive. Right? That's the golden shadow that sits inside of my people pleasing. So, and I think it's really, you know, again, the imposter complex becomes a problem when it keeps you out of action, doubting your capacity, and alone and isolated. Okay.
Yeah.
So each one of these aspects of us, though, hold what I call a golden shadow. So and I think that it's really important to name them because, you know, the self-development industry is a $42 billion industry.
Right.
That's a shit ton of money invested in making people feel like crap about themselves. A lot like the diet industry, right? Like how do we continue to keep people hooked on improving themselves? God forbid they should feel satisfied with actually who they are. So my people pleasing, you know, my people pleasing means that I'm deeply inclusive. The places, you know, if you have leaky boundaries, I invite you to consider that this actually underscores a gorgeous value of generosity, right? Comparison simply means that that connection is really meaningful for you. You're looking to see how things connect and trying to connect the dots, ideas to people to ideas, right? Diminishment might have everything to do with your value of humility. That's a good thing. Your procrastination could have everything to do with the value of discernment. And your perfectionism could have everything to do with the value of excellence, and does.
I love that you just described those that way.
Thank you. Thank you. And when I think about leadership coaching, like, that's the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where our leaders give a shit about being inclusive and generous and committed to connection, right? And excellence and discernment and humility. Those are exquisite leadership properties. They only become a problem when they keep us out of action, doubting our capacity, and alone and isolated. But I see them as, you know, powers for us to be able to absolutely leverage.
Yeah, because, oh gosh, that's, I have like a million questions right now. My brain is firing. Like recognizing the upside, as I'm going to call it, right, of these things that where we would tend to like want to beat ourselves up, like what's wrong with me? Why do I have this thing, right? Why am I a perfectionist? When the reality is it's a gift. It's just how do we turn this on its end and use it as a gift, as opposed to this is something wrong with me, therefore I cannot do the thing that I want to do. Like, like how empowering is that?
May it be very empowering. That is my deepest want. So for somebody who is like, oh, I'm such a perfectionist, I'm so bad, like hand slapping, bad.
Yeah.
So I have a body of work. It's a quiz on my site called what is your iconic identity? And spoiler, when you present with perfectionism, so I'm going to sidebar for a second. I do this a lot. You've probably experienced in our previous conversations. When you name check, you do not experience all of these these behaviors simultaneously. You literally would not get out of bed. Like, you just wouldn't. But they do ping pong off of each other, right? It's like, I'm such a procrastinator. And then you read Mel Robbins, 5-second whatever. And you're like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm out of bed. Great, I've got that handled. And then leaky boundary shows up. So they will ping pong off of each other. So that's why I'm less invested in confidence hacks, because they don't you have to look at the whole structure of it to really get into and under how the imposter complex is, showing up uniquely for you. But let's just say that, the perfectionism is just I'm super over it because I can't get things done in a timely manner because this perfectionism. I would invite you to look at yourself as, first of all, recognizing that you actually have this exquisite value of excellence, praise be, and that a beautiful identity for you to start to work with would be that of the CEO. Because the CEO has a desire for beautiful, impeccable standards, inspires other people to rise up to meet them, but also knows that you have to ship and that you also must delegate, right? If you think about your favorite CEO, Beyonce is actually my, when I think about CEO, Beyonce is the CEO. That she delegates, she makes sure that she has the best of the best. She holds the vision very strongly, but knows that it is impossible for her to do it all herself, right? And I assume at some point or another, you have to recognize that we have to kind of fail fast, or we have to, any kind of opportunity for us to be able to iterate. There's always room for 2.0. So, we can't stay stuck and mired in perfection, else we'd never have, Renaissance tour. We just wouldn't, right?
Right. So when somebody takes your quiz, your online quiz, and I did it, and I came out as a CEO. For full transparency for everybody listening, right? Okay, so I have this thing now. I have this label. I'm CEO, and the upside of my my imposter complex. How do I then take that and embody it? Right? So I'm in this place where I'm okay, I'm feeling all the fear. I'm who am I? I can't do this. Okay, I've done your quiz. Now I'm I'm the CEO. Okay, how do I now rationalize those two places?
Yeah.
And put that into a place of action.
Oh my gosh, I got butterflies. I'm so excited. So excited. These are my favorite questions. It really comes down to, how does a CEO respond to that request? How does the CEO set myself up for success? Where am I doing the things that a CEO maybe shouldn't be doing? How do I delegate more? How do I inspire other people to rise up to meet me? Am I going to be disappointed? Quite possibly, but is it in service of the greater good of the thing that I'm trying to impact or affect? So how do I start to think like a CEO? So first of all, CEO, we'll keep talking about that. But for other folks, the other identities are host and maven and sage and healer and visionary. And so all of these correlate to these particular things. So how does a visionary move? How does a visionary respond? What is that how does a visionary spend their days? So for you, it's intended to be this, it's intended to help you be decisive about certain things, not in the not in the I'm just rubbing my fingers together, in the weeds with it.
In the weeds.
Yeah. So, and then each of these aspects comes down to, so there are these three really fundamental parts about leading with iconic impact. They come down to integrity and presence and action. And so the perfectionism and the procrastination tend to keep us out of action. So where I look there is, how willing to fail are you? How's your resilience? How's your tenacity? How are you bolstering those? Because again, a CEO has to be willing to fail. Has to.
Right.
Has to. So you have to how do I make friends with a willingness to fail? Not a desire to fail, but a willingness to fail.
Right.
right? How do I cultivate more tenacity? How do I cultivate more resilience? How do I bounce back? And so those are the places that I would have you pay attention to. But how do I embody that? That is literally that is a sticky note on your computer. What are my CEO moves today? How do I make decisions as a CEO? Have I set myself up with my conditions for success?
Yeah.
You're looking around for those very same things.
No, you know why? Because if I could show you right here on my bookshelf beside me is in a frame. It has the word CEO. So, and I've had that there for like years. So I just recently did your test, and I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah. Calling you back.
And what I loved about the response to the quiz is that it felt like it had it took me to a level of objectivity that I couldn't quite find before. Right. So I'm like stuck in okay, why can't I get this thing done? What is like, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, I'm stepping out for a second. Now I can see, like you just said, like, what are the things that the CEO would do? And so it pulled me up a level, I guess. To be able to see it for what it was, as opposed to being mired in the emotion of it.
I'm so happy to hear that. That is exactly as designed. So thank you so much.
Perfect.
I'm going to take that right back to the team, because that was the intention, was for it to get us out of, once again, the weeds of it, and to be able to see ourselves in this elevated perspective, and then start to making some decisions from that place. And again, there's like only you are going to be able to recognize that. And sometimes it's going to be like, well, that wasn't a CEO move. Maybe it wasn't possible for me. What have I learned from it? Because that's what a CEO does. What did I learn from this? What did I, what am I going to optimize now? And, in fairness too, I really want to acknowledge that sometimes as a CEO, you don't always want to have to operate at such a high level all the time. And so I want to name that for people who are feeling exhausted by all this, like elevate, all the time elevating. Oh my God, it's exhausting. So that gets to be here too. But a CEO also knows how to resource themselves.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, that is your job as a CEO, is to recognize where you're not resourced. Yeah.
Yep.
So to those of you listening, I mean, I'm going to put this in the show notes, but please go if the words imposter complex resonate with you in any way, please go check out this quiz. It's short, but it's ridiculously informative. Like, I did it myself, and I was like, oh yeah, wow, okay, this is so much easier, or less complex, should I say, than I was making it out to be.
I'm so happy to hear that. And I'll also say too, like, we have people who take it, a different precipice point for themselves, and they might get a different response because of that ping-ponging way that, that might not be up for you right now. And now it might be why am I hedging on these really, really, really good ideas? Like, why am I diminishing my best ideas? Well, now it's time for the visionary to come in and have their say. I would say so many of my people tend to be visionaries, CEOs, because the diminishment and perfectionism is real. It's so deeply conditioned.
Yeah. So we chatted before our interview today, and one of the things that we were talking about is how imposter complex shapeshifts with age. And I really want to get into this because I think my own experience of imposter complex, which I've had various different points of my life, has definitely shifted. And so how do you see that shift happening with people? Because I think everybody can relate to imposter complex at some point in their lives. Like, I think I don't think we would be human if we didn't have this, right? Yeah. So how do you see it shifting with age and with experience?
Very many things to say about this. Okay, so the core of my work is, again, if the imposter complex wants to keep us out of action, doubting our capacity, and alone and isolated, my strategies are very much tailored to those objectives. So alone and isolated, you got to gather your people. You got to bring in the network. You got to make sure you aren't doing any of this alone. If it wants to have you doubt your capacity, you need to root into proof positive about all that you've ever done and healed and delivered and sold and survived and done, right? And if it's going to keep you out of action, you got to figure out what's actually in the way here, right? So like, it's not rocket surgery, as we like to say, but it's like, hashtag simple, not easy. So how it shapeshifts for me, I was in Chicago doing a speaking gig, and it was a tastemakers conference. It was so much fun. And that was one of the questions from the floor, like, how does this, at what age do you stop experiencing the imposter complex? And I was like, honey, bad news. Bad news for you. As long as you are continuing to swing out and you're at the precipice of your expansion, you're going to experience it. You will, however, have a faster recovery. And that's what this is really about.
Yes.
You will switch the lights on much faster and go, oh, tut, 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 I see what's going on here. Cutie, cutie, cutie. I see what's happening here. And then you can make some other decisions. My Siri keeps going off. So it's about having a faster recovery. I couldn't, even if I wanted to, I couldn't eradicate the experience of imposter complex. It is literally part of our, our bioevolution, right? So it's not about that. It's about understanding what's going on. So I think that what happens though is the longer, if we look at that, wants us to have doubt our capacity, the longer you've been on this good earth, the more things that you have done to root into proof positive, right? So it's less about being done with it and more at a point where it's like, oh, and I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that. And every time I jumped, I discovered that the party was on the other side of the resistance. Every damn time. So at a certain point, it becomes inefficient to be in the question of it, right? But it's still going to pop up, but you're going to have just much more to build upon. Yeah?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier about, dismissing our resume of experience, whether it comes from life or career or whatever, that we have proof points. Like, there's really nothing new. Like, we're just repeating, the same thing. So to your point is like going back to that resume of experience to say, oh, look, I've got this, this, and this, right? That can help us get over that imposter complex hurdle quicker.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say resume of experience is so hilarious. Somebody just fairly recently, I had them do this exercise, and they came back and they're like, everybody's the big eyeball roll. What have I done? What are all the things that I've done? And then she came back like a week later. She's like, I forgot to tell you I have a PhD. Like, how did you write a PhD? So it's it's like the things you've done, but it's also that it's remembering that experience, right? The first time you were asked to manage the team, and you're like, there's no way, and now it's like breathing, right? It's like the most natural thing. And it's more about that, like connecting to those moments where there's no way, like how could the 7th grade science fair project nomination have anything to do with me starting this new arm of my business? Well, that has everything to do with it, because there was a moment before you'd done it, you didn't think you were capable of doing it, jumped and discovered the party was on the other side of the resistance, right? Like, so it's that. But I think the part, and I think what you're pointing to as well, is the fact that we have this, like, we have so much of this experience, like, so maybe there's this perspective or this perception that because there's nothing new under the sun, like, we should be steeped in all of this confidence. To which I'd say, as long as we're swinging out and doing things that feel big and we've never been here before, never been here before, my body does what now? Excuse me? All of a sudden I can't read that? Like, what? So we're at the precipice of something new again. So of course it's going to show up. And then I think the other part of this is, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, and I named this in my TEDx talk quite a while ago, we know more than we think, and we'll never know it all.
Yes.
And I think the closer, like the older we get, the more we understand the truth of that. And that's, there's grief here and there's relief here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I just got goosebumps as you were saying that. And, like, not trusting ourselves, I think, is another, like, incredibly important thing, like not trusting ourselves to be able to, okay, maybe we've, jumped that hurdle once, we've gone through that experience, but then not necessarily trusting ourselves to be able to do it again.
Right. Oh yeah. Again, that statute of limitations has finally run out. Like it's suddenly run out, right? Like,
right.
It's just run out. Like I'm never going to be able to do that ever again. So what if you just dared to believe that it's going to continue as long as you keep showing up to the table with your skills and your will and your talent and your everything that you have built to this precise moment is actually going to continue to sustain you just as it always has.
Right. Right. Oh, that is so good.
There's one other thing I'm hoping I can I just want to name this just again in terms of like the age thing, because this was so interesting to me. And I actually hadn't realized, maybe it was for this precise moment that I did this. I was invited to speak at a national conference for the Society of Women Engineers. And I was invited to do a keynote for the entire event and then do 2 smaller main stage rooms for collegiates. So like collegiate engineers just out of university. Colleges, and then one for C-suite, like so senior women in engineering. Mm-hmm. So this is like VP Google, Microsoft, like really, women who are at the top of their game, and then folks who are just at the beginning of their career. So just kind of as a bit of a thought experiment, I decided to I've talked about the same framework that I've had for a billion years because it continues to stand the test of time. So I talked about this idea of making sure that you are, meeting the critics, understanding what's in the way, bolstering your authority thesis, making sure that you're optimizing all that you've already done, and then assembling the cast, making sure that you're leaning into your network, actually allowing yourself to be supported, asking for the help, all of that stuff, right? All very rich, layered nuance, but it's still, those are basically the tenets of it. Well, the moment we got to that part about asking for help, immediate arms crossed, and like the collegiates stopped listening. They're like, nope, can't trust others. There are only so many spots at the top. I got to do this myself. I'm like, so it was just this extremely visceral, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And then the next day, I think it was, I did basically the same, obviously some difference, but the same talk-ish with these, high-powered women at the top of their game. And they're like, oh, yeah. Snap, 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 snap. I would be nowhere if it weren't for the kinship, the mentorship, the support of other women in particular. But if it weren't for that, I would be nowhere. So there's something that happens where over time we recognize that your people want you to succeed. Not everybody, but your people want you to succeed. And so as we get older, we have this greater sense of that. And so I think that also helps significantly and organically with our imposter complex, because we have more comfort in being able to say, God damn, that was hard. Was it hard? Yeah, that was really hard. I see what you did there. I've got so that starts to become much more a function of our lives. So I think that's in part why it shifts as well, because we have deeper roots, deeper relationships, and it makes it a lot more, it just makes it easier.
So I have a lot to say about this one. How does asking for help? So let me just put this in context. I didn't learn the asking for help lesson until much, much later on. Call me a late bloomer, whatever you want to call it, right? But I was I used to be, and especially this was true of my corporate career, I used to be in the I have to do it all 100%. Thing, right? To the point that I literally burned myself out. Right? How does asking for help relate to the imposter complex? Yeah.
How long is a piece of string? So there are 12 lies of the imposter complex that we would have talked about a while ago. One of them is asking for help is for the weak. Asking for help is for the weak. Right. So of all of the 12 lies of the imposter complex, so I love my gold stars. So when I did my TEDx talk, I named one of the foremothers of this idea, imposter phenomenon. It was coined by clinical psychologist Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes back in 1978. Somebody heard my talk and said, oh, cool that you actually reference them. Not everybody does that. So Pauline Clance and I became chummy. So I sent her these 12 lies because I wanted the gold star from the foremother of this concept. And she was like, 1 through 11, like nailed it. This asking for help is for the weak gives me a bit of pause. Now remember, she was doing her academic work back in 1978, when asking for help as a woman in academia was actually a liability. Right. We now live in a world where we actually have a more fundamental understanding that asking for help simply means that you're serious about your success. We just get that and understand it culturally. It doesn't mean that it's comfortable, right? Because of course, because of the perfectionism and the hypervigilance and the, I can do it myself and all of that, like it doesn't make it easier, but we understand intellectually that it makes all of the difference. Now, again, it is very layered. Not everybody wants you to succeed, but your people do. And I think that's a really important distinction. Yeah. So we've asked the wrong people for support. They have not shown up to meet us. We've dealt with the disappointment. We've dealt with the betrayal. We've experienced all of it. That makes it really hard to continue to reach out for that kind of support. So our job is to figure out who our people actually are and how to ask them and what it actually means. We need to take down some of the gravitas of it. Because again, the imposter complex wants to keep you alone and isolated, meaning you got to do this in the silo. You got to experience this on your own.
Yeah.
That's how it affects it.
And I can see how that shifts with age, because as you become more authentically yourself, you tend to hone your circle a lot tighter and know who the players are that are your people, right? Exactly. And so being able to, so that makes sense then from, that group of women.
Yeah. They over time, they're like, oh, okay, so not everybody, but my people, and boy, will my people show up. And again, that's not to suggest, hashtag simple, not easy, because not everybody has found their people, and that can feel really, really, hard. So I understand that too. So it's important to find those communities of like-minded folks, and really invest the time and energy in it. And sometimes people ask me, what do you mean when you talk about your people? And I was hoping that it was like right here, but it's kind of hidden. Nayira Wahid in Salt, a beautiful book of poetry, talks about this is how you know. So I think I'm hoping I get this right. But some people, when they hear your story, contract. Other people, upon hearing your story, expand. And this is how you know.
Oh, that is so interesting.
That's so good.
So good.
So your people are the people that expand with you, right? That want to expand with your expansion. And the people who, can't be with it, they're going to contract. And that's how you know. And I think that we spend a lot of time, I will say for myself, the relationships that just simply don't serve any longer have had that contracting kind of quality.
Yeah. And so can asking for help also be in the form of hiring a coach or that type of stuff? Yeah. Sure.
Absolutely. It can be the coach. It can be, mentor. It could be asking for sponsorship inside of an organization. Any which way. It's funny though, because sometimes I have found, and I think that it's obviously as a coach, I love when people, want to get that kind of really, really, really external perspective where it's really all about them. It's like there's a quality of reverence that shows up, and it's just like, I really want to bring my absolute best, and I want somebody's perspective on this, because it's never going to be entirely clean when you're, so like with a peer, or colleague, or a friend, they're not going to have the same trained ability to see the whole of you without projection. That's the projection-free, perspective that a coach can offer you. So I kind of lost my train of thought there, and that's all good. So 100%. But I think it's that's what it was. And sometimes I hear people say, listen, I'm great at hiring for help, but I'm not great at asking for help. And I feel like that's an important distinction. I feel like everybody asking for help whether it's in addressing imposter complex, in helping chart the career path, in making sure that they're not doing more of the invisible load in the household, right? Like, it's in all of the different ways, but we have to I'll just say, asking for help is not actually my edge. It's not my edge. I'm actually great at asking for help. My edge is in doing it myself.
Right.
That's my edge.
Right. Well, and in my own reinvention journey, let's say, when I knew I wanted to change my life, and I didn't, like, everybody around me, all of my friends, my peers were people who looked and thought and acted just like me. And I was like, okay, I need a different perspective. Like, I need somebody who's going to show me the things that I can't see. And I didn't have that in my immediate peer group. So I knew I had to kind of step beyond that. To be like, okay, I need somebody who come from a completely different walk of life to show me what I can't see.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was a very cool thing about the Board of Your Life experience, because that was the invitation. Like, reflect back what you see about this person. And it was really very interesting, but it was impossible for people to not see them through the lens of their own lived experience. So for me, one of my best friends is a doctor, so she saw me through this helping healing lens. Another dear friend of mine is, writes for the New York Times, so she's a bureau chief in Paris. So she saw me through the lens of my writing. So other people would see me through those really specific lenses. So it was interesting. It's like, oh, I am part of people's circle of healing and helping. I am a writer, right? Like, all of these different things. And then a friend who was in advertising with me, she's like, you love facilitating a meeting. You love being, I'm like, oh, so all of these things were true, but they were through the lens of that person's perspective. Super cool, but also not entirely clean, shall we say.
Right.
Whereas a coach is like, self-management 101, like, our job is to not be attached.
Yeah. Well, and it's just so helpful, and even just like your experience. Like, I mean, it's helpful to see those different dimensions of yourself reflected
100%.
back, because we're different with all different people, right? And then the layer of a coach who can see you without any of that past experience and just sees you for what you are in this present moment. Like, I find that incredibly valuable.
Yes.
Because a lot of what I was trying to do, and I don't know, for people who are listening, like, I was literally trying to not carry forward a lot of things that had not served me. So I needed somebody to see me where I am right in this particular moment, right? And then how to go forward. So it's just such an interesting perspective.
Mm-hmm. May I reflect one more thing to you?
Yes, please do.
So as CEO, where I would have you looking for yourself is this, like, we need Jennifer on more stages, y'all. So we need Jennifer on more stages. We need her, like, out on the stages. So as CEO, that's where I would like put on the CEO hat. How do we, like, really cultivate this already beautiful, robust speaking arm of your business? But where's the support that we need? Who do we need to ask? Like, where do we need to delegate? Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, that is so true. I mean, speaking on stages is my second favorite thing to do after this podcast, because it's literally like all about how can I use my voice to, empower and inspire. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. This has been such a great conversation. Where can people find out more about you and your work? Like, if anybody here is resonating with the whole topic of imposter complex, where can they go?
So I would honestly do the quiz first. I would do tanyageisler.com/quiz, because even if you're not resonating with the imposter complex full writ, you may recognize the spaces of diminishment or perfectionism or comparison, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you might imposter complex has really become kind of a hotbed naming for lots of reasons. First of all, imposter syndrome, co-op's a medical term. That's why I don't call it that. There's a lot of sometimes organizations will bring imposter complex folks in to basically gaslight their people and say, this is your problem, but they don't actually offer any institutional ground cover. So it's like, might not be an individual's issue. It might actually be leadership, right? So there's a way in which it's been a kind of a fraught conversation. So you might even be listening to this and going, Yeah, this imposter complex conversation makes me uncomfortable, but go do the quiz, because then you're going to see how the comparison and perfectionism, the procrastination, all those places where maybe you've been making yourself wrong are actually opportunities for you to step into what I call your iconic identity. And so TanyaGeisler.com/quiz, first place. I'm on Instagram probably more than any place else at Tanya Geisler. I'm sometimes on LinkedIn. We have a bit of a lover's quarrel from time to time, but I'm there as well. So those are the places.
Amazing. Oh, this has been so good. Thank you for having this conversation with me today. I mean, we could go many levels deeper on any number of topics within this topic, which we might have to in subsequent episodes. But for those of you listening, I encourage you, if you're stepping out of your comfort zone in any way, if you're questioning your own abilities, even if the words imposter complex resonate with you and you don't fully understand why, please head on over to TanyaGeisler.com and dig in. I mean, she's got a wealth of resources there. The quiz, I absolutely agree. Start with the quiz, because that was super eye-opening for me. Go check it out. You have to go check it out.
Thank you for having me. It's been so delightful, and your care for your audience is so palpable. So I'm really honored that you shared me with everybody, and I can't wait to share a stage with you soon, Jennifer.
We will absolutely share a stage one day. So to those of you listening, I hope you got some insight, some inspiration, some education from this episode. If you liked what you heard today, please feel free to go leave us a rating or a review, or even better yet, pass this along to somebody who you think might get something out of it. Thanks for listening to the Old Chicks No Shit podcast. If you like what you heard, the greatest compliment you could give us would be to comment below and subscribe. Or better yet, you could share this episode with a friend, a relative, or somebody you think could get something out of it. And remember, midlife is not the beginning of the end. It's simply the beginning of your kick-ass next chapter.